Joining us now to discuss the crypto markets and more is John Todaro, Vice President at Needham Co, and independent investment bank and asset manager. Hello, John. Thanks for joining us. So Bitcoin is rebounding from this morning's retreat. Do you see higher highs and lower lows ahead with a bullish macro backdrop for Bitcoin?
I do think we're still in a bullish macro setup here for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies more broadly. So I am expecting Bitcoin to extend and likely you might start to see us see new highs in, call it Q1 and Q2 of 22 before you might see a longer term correction. I would note this has been one of the longer standing Bitcoin and crypto bull runs. So I do think folks need to be a little bit cautious out there. But I would say I think that the setup still looks strong here for a continued run. I think most of the pullback recently there was a lot of retail froth and excitement in the markets with different meme tokens trading to all-time highs such as Shiba Inu. And then now you've seen a pullback where those tokens have been hit really the hardest. So Dogecoin and Shiba Inu have really pulled back the most. And you've actually seen the metaverse tokens levered to that theme, actually outperforming and performing pretty well. So Sandbox and Decentraland, their token Mana, are actually outperforming on the last few days here.
Mm-hmm. How do you think a second term for Fed Chair Jerome Powell will impact the crypto markets?
So any indication of interest rate hikes, whether those are going to occur sooner than expected, are going to be somewhat detrimental to crypto markets. And that's because, in my view, crypto markets are mostly still kind of a risk-on trade. And anything more risk-on, where yields are potentially more in the future, they're going to be discounted more harshly on an interest rate hike. So that's why tech stocks are also underperforming on the day. Anything that's a little bit more risk on has the potential to pull back a little bit harder. So I think that's being played into the recent cryptocurrency pullback, but I wouldn't make too much cause of concern around it. The Fed has historically, at least recently, kept rates near zero. And even if we do start to see a rate hike, I don't think it's going to be anything too significant. So I think the setup still looks strong. Obviously, intraday, you're going to see pullbacks based on some of those Fed policy decisions and moves. But I don't think it's anything that should be too much of a cause for concern.
Do you see any headwinds coming out of Asia? We're hearing news reports now that India is submitting a bill to Parliament that will ban private cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin in favor of a central bank digital currency like a digital rupee, following the route of China, it seems, which also is developing their digital yuan, their central bank digital currency that everyone in the nation will be using in 2022 by the Beijing Olympics.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a concern that the policy that we saw come out of China, if that's starting to be replicated and duplicated in other countries, there certainly could start to look like a concern. I would say, I think most Western nations are starting to embrace cryptocurrencies to an extent. So I don't know if these blanket banning policies are going to be duplicated and replicated across the globe. You might see some countries here and there, but I still think a lot of that policy is still being worked out. So while you saw some headlines today with India, I don't think it's going to be the final word. I think a lot of the policy decisions are still being worked out. And I think even in the U.S., they're still being worked out. I think the United States is definitely going to take what looks to be a less aggressive approach than something like a country like China did or some of these other nations. But I wouldn't put too much on that and think there's going to be a broad clampdown.
Some countries are fully embracing Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, like El Salvador, which just announced that they want to build a Bitcoin city. They want to issue a $1 billion worth of Bitcoin bonds, half of which will go toward building that Bitcoin city and purchasing even more Bitcoin. But will that have much of an impact on the markets, do you think? I mean, $1 billion compared to the whole crypto market cap is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, to that extent, it really is. I mean, the cryptocurrency market cap now is so massive. There's a lot of capital that needs to flood into these markets to really start to move the needle. So small governments, as those are concerned, those aren't going to move the market too materially. It definitely signals the right approach. And I think as governments, even small countries, start to embrace cryptocurrency, that will be read as a positive for the crypto market. But in terms of actually those inflows impacting prices too substantially, I don't think you're going to see much impact from that.
Okay. And finally, John, just quickly, price predictions for the end of the year. I know you're bullish. So.
I never like to make crypto price predictions because it is so volatile. But I would say in our notes we put out at Needham, we do have around 100 grand Bitcoin into Q1 22. So I think around there is probably a decent price we'll see around the new year, hopefully.